up for the night. So I want to talk about revision because you had a unique experience of revision, and have had a resultant unique perspective on revision. A lot of people heavily advocate for revising major traumatic experiences, things from your deep past, as well as revising your everyday. And as far as I know, you don't revise, but you had an experience with trying to revise some of your deep past, and that didn't really go well for you. So now you don't revise. Could you just talk a little bit about that and about how you know that you don't need to revise to get what you want, and that for basically for some people, revision is not always the best thing to do, and that's okay because you can still have a great life now.
Sure. So in the time that I was really going through this moment in my life, I was reevaluating a lot of the relationships that I had had with family members, with friendships, work-wise, and also reevaluating my beliefs in regards to feelings of worthiness. And so I had started working with a coach, and she had suggested to me that I go back in and revise a lot of the childhood traumas that I had experienced. And in doing so, I found it excruciatingly painful. And I found myself being re traumatized by the full event. And she insisted that I keep on trying and trying it again. And ultimately, what it ended up doing was causing far more damage than help. And I think a lot of that had to do with a great deal of internal beliefs that I had on how I viewed myself, how I viewed my beliefs of safety, and being able to really understand in a subconscious way that I was already safe. And unfortunately, it just did not work out with that coach. I ended up firing her. But this really threw me for a tailspin on what I was hoping to be a place that I would finally have um, the breakthrough that I was hoping for. That just did not come to fruition. And instead, I just felt really walking away incredibly wounded from that experience. And so, what I learned is that you don't need to revise painful traumatic events in order to forgive them and let them go. Sometimes it's just too painful to revise and revisit those moments. And I remember, some time ago, I was reading Dr. Peter Levine, who is a specialist in post traumatic stress disorder. At the time, I had been diagnosed with complex compound post traumatic stress disorder over the series of traumas that I had experienced. And he had found through similar studies, particularly with Vietnam veterans, that he would have come in and discuss a lot of the things that had happened in Vietnam. And these veterans would just become re traumatized. And as a result, you seek numbing mechanisms, which, vary from person to person. And so I realized it was really painful. Um, and I didn't quite understand what the purpose was of revisiting that to say that I had this lovely moment when in fact it was a devastatingly traumatic event. And I found that for me, the best thing that I could do is acknowledge it happened, feel the emotions of fear that I had when I had that traumatic event to release them. And, the activity of being able to go ahead and do that, going out for a hike, going out for a walk, going out, particularly in nature, was really helpful to me. And in that moment, I was also seeking more of understanding and alone time. So I had manifested living at the beach for the full summer. If you ever want to do that, I highly recommend it. walking distance to the beach is definitely one of my favorite things. Um, and so I was able to go ahead and say, yes, this happened to me. That doesn't make me less of a person. That doesn't make me less than. It doesn't make me ugly or disfigured or somehow worth less than someone who has these ideals of what purity and what virtue looks like. And that's okay. And ultimately, I came away with the understanding, number one, nobody's perfect. Number two, we all experience events that lead some sort of traumatic um, indentation in this human experience. And so all of those are just characteristics that move you towards the person that you've become. And so for me, that it just felt a lot better to do forgiveness and release. And I realized that that really worked for me. And it also worked towards the relationships that I had, um, and how I've been able to go ahead and move forward from that. Ultimately, what I've also learned, if you're looking for another form of revision, whether it's, you were looking for something and you don't know where it is, and then you just visualize that it's in your hand because you remember that you had put it in this drawer, what have you. Those kind of revisions can be incredibly helpful. But I think the really technical, the really big emotional ones, for me personally, have definitely done more harm than good. And to just let go of them and let them be is perfectly fine. And at the end of the day, the end goal is to always live in the now. And I think that is my biggest takeaway from that experience.
Yeah, because ultimately, most people who have a desire to revise something, it's because they want to change something now or in their future anyway. So that revising the past isn't necessary for that. It's simply moving into the state. I mean, the only reason you're revising something is to forget it and make sure it's not part of your current body of beliefs. And the real goal there is forgetting it. True forgiveness is forgetfulness. And of course, you can revise and achieve that. However, you can also just totally move into a new state where that no longer applies, where that no longer feels like who you are and what has any creative power in your world. And of course, that's going to be reflected. Another friend of mine had experienced that when she revises, the revision works. However, the original incident replays physically in the exterior world. So, like if she, hopefully, maybe she'll come on at some point and be able to discuss some examples of this. But like if she had an argument with someone, she'll revise it. What'll happen though is they'll have the argument again, but then they'll play out whatever her revision is. So she doesn't like to revise because it causes that replay in the exterior world. And I'm glad you're willing to talk about this because I do think that this is a reminder that Neville kind of left out, though he generally advises, use the law at your own risk, because it can cause, if not something in the exterior world to animate, at least that it's going to bring up that old state in you that you want to let go of anyway. So if you can move into a preferred state without revising, that's going to be preferential for most people, especially when it comes to, a deeper trauma.
Well, you have to remember that everything is just a temporary experience, and everyone and everything is you pushed out. And ultimately, all horrible things are just an illusion of fear. And fear itself is just an illusion to push you towards the loving state. Um, that is the true state. That is your real state. That is the great I am, right? And once you recognize that, everything else doesn't matter. Nothing else matters in regards to what the significance of that is, because ultimately everything melts away to the truth, and the truth is perfection and love.
So the last thing I want to touch on tonight though we'll have some space at the end for a little like suggested technique or something like that. For someone out there who has been consciously imagining, oh, Campbell's enjoying it. Thank you, Campbell. For someone out there who has been consciously imagining for something for a year or more, and they come to you and say, you know, I've been imagining for this, and I have either little movement or no movement at all, and I'm starting to feel pretty despondent. I do feel in general that my mental diet's been on point, but I'm still not getting the result I want. What would be your advice to them?
So my advice would be that it is time to re-examine where the dominant feelings within you lie. And so for that, I would suggest that you take some time, at least 15 to 20 minutes, to just think about your manifestation, the desired result, and recognize, and really be honest about what feelings arise when you are thinking about this manifestation, whether it's a person, whether it's an outcome, whether it's a job. And if the vast majority of those emotions are negative, there's something that you are telling yourself internally, and it could be subconsciously, um, that is really hindering the fruition of this manifestation. Now, we all have things that we decide to bury, and that's just part of the human experience. And in my past, what I've done is that I've had tarot read on the manifestation, because sometimes it was just too painful to kind of look at, like, what is the obstruction here. And so everything in the world is a mirror, whether it is a friend telling you or a tarot. Tarot is a very clear mirror to what is happening in your subconscious mind, but understand that tarot does not tell you what the future is. It just tells you what your subconscious mind is thinking. And so in this particular instance, that tarot said that I did not feel deserving of this manifestation. And so then I had to go back and do a great deal of work in my inner core beliefs, and to, this is something that I had not consciously acknowledged. And so you have to be able to go ahead and sometimes dig a little, and once again kind of sit in that discomfort to be able to go ahead and release it and acknowledge that feelings aren't always facts, and take the time to really say, okay, this is something that I have told my subconscious is the reason why I can't have this. But of course, everything is an illusion, including the blocks. So know it's an illusion. So then once you recognize, okay, in that particular time, it was feelings of unworthiness. But am I really unworthy? Of course I'm worthy. And what other things could I go ahead and do to support my case of worthiness, to support my case of course. And then of course, once you're able to kind of move into that state, into that feeling, go back to that list of manifestations that you've had, that faith that you've built, and know that it's already here now. And so once you're able to do that, you're able to see it just come to fruition. And for me, to be honest with you, that was my first home purchase, because at the time it just felt so overwhelming to purchase a home, and I had so much anxiety into it and a lot of fears tethered into it that I didn't recognize, that were very much subconscious. And it was one of those things that when the first contract went out, it just kept on falling through, and no matter what I did, something would happen and I could not purchase this property. But finally, when I was able to pull back enough and take a deep breath and realize I have multiple options, I'm worthy of owning a home as a single female, it was able to go ahead and change that core belief system. And then very quickly, just snap, it happened. And before you knew it, I was finally a homeowner. And it's one of those things that you have to sometimes dive a little deeper into. ultimately the only blocks that are there are the ones that you tell your subconscious are there. And when you put those blocks there, they're not always consciously put there by you. And part of the unraveling of those beliefs and those painful thoughts or illusions, those blocks, is part of the human experience. And sometimes other things that seem much bigger to manifest um, are simpler, specifically because you don't have any hesitation or doubt that there's a possibility to them or attachment. And that's what I have found in my years of experience. And so this is one particular case where I experienced it and how I was able to go ahead and change it and really understand. And sometimes going ahead and having moments where you try different ways to impress your subconscious mind and really wasn't working for me, because I would script and then I would visualize and then I would try something else and it just wasn't happening because I wasn't addressing the problem. And the problem was that I had fears of unworthiness, that I'm not deserving of owning a home when I see so many others in my family who have yet to be able to own a home, and I feel have worked so much harder than I have for it. And then also some fears of scarcity. So all those things that kind of play in that you have to address and realize, oh, it's an illusion. I have been able to go ahead and understand that. I release it, I move into a different state, and then I receive it.
So our last, I think that was great, and for anyone who is finding themselves in that state right now, listen to it a couple times, because I think there's some helpful advice in there. So our last little thing for tonight, before we sign off, if is there any technique or just an assumption or even just a general concept that you would like to suggest to the audience to spend some time with tonight, whether that's a little scene they could do or an assumption that they can just kind of focus on and bring into their thoughts, or just a feeling that you would say, hey, spend 5 minutes focusing on that tonight.
So my suggestion is never stop manifesting for others, especially when they can't manifest for themselves, or for whatever reason you haven't had that manifesting conversation for them. And I think over the years, some of the biggest joys I've had in my life was manifesting for others. And I'll tell you one story. So I had years ago an elderly neighbor. And this elderly neighbor, she's so sweet. She and her daughter, her adult daughter, who's also older, much older than I am, lived together in this house. And they had very little income, and the house had many problems. They needed a new roof, they needed a new kitchen, they needed stuff. And I just remember feeling so bad because they were both such sweet people. And oh, I thought to myself, I wish, I had money to give them to repair their home. And so I remember just imagining they had an influx of money come into their lives, and they were able to make all of these repairs into their house. And so time passed, and I ended up moving to the ocean that one summer, um, which was amazing. And I'm swimming in the ocean, and I'm thinking about those neighbors, and I'm thinking about them, and I was like, oh, and I hope they get that influx of money to repair. And then I stopped myself mid-sentence in my head, and I immediately started laughing like a crazy person out in the ocean swimming by myself. And I had realized, oh my gosh, my manifestation already happened. So I had scripted this. They had me over for lunch to show off their brand new beautiful kitchen and all the bells and whistles that came with that new kitchen. And they were telling me how they had owned this property in North Carolina for years and years and years, decades, and had never been able to sell it. And then all of a sudden, a buyer just showed up and bought the property, and they finally had the money to make repairs to their home. And had completely forgotten I made that manifestation, went over to their house for lunch, ate lunch, and then just went on with my business. And I have to say, when moments like that have happened in my life, and I hear people who, maybe I'm not as close to, or I immediately revise it in my head, or I visualize and manifest that they have that abundance that they're so desperately aching for. And I think this was a perfect example of a story of, oh yeah, I manifested that for them, completely forgotten about it, and then had so much joy as I was out swimming in the ocean, realizing that manifestation that I was ready to do again had already been done. So if you get a chance, it really is, there is just so much more joy in giving rather than receiving. So manifest for those around you, especially those who have absolutely no idea that this is how the law works.
I don't think you've ever told me that experience before. And what's hilarious about it is like that manifestation was trying to slam you in the face. It literally invited you to lunch.
Yes,
And
yes,
then you didn't even realize till later. That's hilarious.
yes, absolutely. Well, because manifesting is a lifestyle, and once you
Right.
learn how to manifest, you're manifesting everything all the time. And there's been a number of occasions that things will pop up randomly in my life, and I said, "Oh, that's right, I manifested that. That's so great that finally came through."
Yeah, a common assumption that people who are new to the law have, I never had it, but I have noticed it on forums before, is that you're somehow going to miss your manifestation. And I think a lot of it's just the idea that people, they fear they might miss out on some opportunity or something in their life. And so they think this is going to happen when it comes to consciously using your imagination. And it's like, no, 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 no. Your manifestation will hunt you down.
Yeah,
It will literally knock on your door. It will not stop calling you. Your manifestation will hound you until you experience it, unless you move into a state that cancels it out. But it's like you are never going to miss your manifestation. You're not going to like somehow be too late for the thing you've been manifesting for 3 years. It's not going to happen. Like, let
yeah,
go. That is such a limiting belief. Let go of it literally right now. And one natural way to let go of it is you're going to see this happen again and again, where it's like they literally invited you over to show you your manifestation.
No, the funny thing is that I didn't realize that it had happened until
Yeah,
months later when I was swimming in the ocean. And
that's
I was
brilliant.
like, oh, yeah, that's right.
All right, so everybody, and I think this fits great with our overall theme of friends today. You have your task for tonight, everyone. Imagine something lovely for someone else. And it can be just these fun daydreams, because I gather that when you manifested that for them, it was just kind of a light daydream, right?
It was. It was
Yeah.
very simple.
Just have fun and enjoy as you're daydreaming about this thing for your friend. Enjoy it. Like, you don't make it like a task, like it's a job. Just really enjoy it and have fun with it. And then when it happens, you're gonna be like, "Oh my god, yeah, I really did that." Have fun with it. All right, so thank you so much. This has been really great, and hopefully we can do this again sometime soon. I'm gonna pop up for anyone who wants to talk to you on Fiverr. Your link right there. You can also check out Manifest1922.com. Thank you so much. It's been just a really great experience.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
All right, everybody, have a good night. I'll be back on Tuesday. I don't know if I'm going to do Neville. I'm probably going to do some Walter C. Lanyon. And hopefully, Daphne, you'll have some time to catch that one, because I know you haven't read any Walter yet, right?
No, I have not. So I will definitely catch it.
Well, he's great. So if I end up doing Walter, I'll send you the link to that, because I think he integrates the Bible just as deftly as Neville does. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you all next time. Oh, and if you have any follow-up questions for Daphne, you can always email me, and I can pass that question on to her. You can email me at imaginationstream@gmail.com. And I don't check it every day, but I check it often enough. Or if you're one of the people that knows me more personally, just ask me and I'll ask her and relay the answer back to you. All right, everybody, have a good night. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time. Peace.